I'm Barbara Morrison. I'm 68 years old, and I've learned the hard way that blood isn't always thicker than greed. Sometimes it's just a currency people use to buy your trust before they bankrupt you. I handed my daughter and her husband a cashier's check for $200,000, my entire life savings to help them build a future. And in return, they handed me a heavy-duty trash bag and an eviction notice 3 days after my daughter's funeral. They looked at me and saw a senile, worn-out caregiver who had outlived her usefulness, a relic to be discarded on the roadside. They thought they were leaving behind a helpless old woman with nothing but a broken heart and an empty wallet. But they didn't know the one thing that changes everything. I am the sole beneficiary of a secret $12 million empire they would kill to possess. By tomorrow morning, the locks on the doors will be changed, their assets will be frozen, and the people who tried to erase me will find themselves standing on the wrong side of the glass. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The silence in the house was wrong. It wasn't the heavy, respectful silence of mourning. It was the sterile, vacuum-sealed silence of a transaction that had been finalized. 3 days had passed since we lowered Rachel into the hard clay of the cemetery plot. 3 days since I stood under the blistering sun, sweating in a black dress that smelled of mothballs, watching my only daughter disappear into the earth. I thought the quiet in the hallway was grief. I was a fool. It was the sound of efficiency. It was the sound of a slate being wiped clean. I stood in the living room of the sprawling suburban house I had helped purchase. My knees ached, a dull, grinding throb that served as a constant reminder of 50 years spent on my feet, double shifts at the hospital, bending over patients, organizing supply closets until my hands were swollen and my back permanently curved. I looked at the photos on the mantel, Rachel in her graduation gown, looking terrified and proud, Rachel holding baby Sophie, her eyes wide with the shock of motherhood, and a picture of me and Robert, taken a year before the heart attack finally won. Sitting on a bench by the ocean dot, the air in the room smelled of dying lilies and expensive cleaning products. A sharp chemical citrus scent was trying to mask the death, scrubbing away the memory of the wake we had held just 48 hours ago. I heard him then, Marcus. He was in the kitchen, his voice carrying through the open concept floor plan. It wasn't a whisper, it was a command. Liquidation is the priority. Simon. Yes. I understand the tax implications. Just move the portfolio. We need cash liquidity, and we need it yesterday. I walked toward the kitchen. The floors were marble cold enough to penetrate the soles of my shoes. Marcus was standing by the island, a phone pressed to his ear, a glass of Pinot Noir in his other hand. He wasn't wearing black. He was wearing a charcoal gray designer polo that looked like it cost more than my car. He looked up as I entered, his eyes flicking over me like I was a smudge on his pristine countertop. I have to go handle it. He tapped the screen of his phone and set it down face down, as if hiding a secret. He took a sip of the wine, his eyes never leaving mine. There was no warmth there, no shared sorrow, just a flat, reptilian calculation. Barbara, he said. He had stopped calling me Mom 5 years ago. You're up. I couldn't sleep, I said, my voice raspy. The house, it feels empty without her. It is empty, he corrected, turning to the pantry. He opened the door and pulled out a box of heavy-duty contractor bags. He tossed one onto the island. It landed with a slap of heavy plastic. And it needs to be emptier. I looked at the black plastic, then back at him. What is this? It's for your things, he said, picking up his wine glass again. I'm listing the house, Barbara. The market is peaking, and this place is a mausoleum. It's too big for just me and Sophie. We're downsizing, moving to the city. Listing it, I stammered. But Marcus, this is our home. I gave Rachel the down payment. I live here. Where am I supposed to go? He sighed a long, exaggerated exhalation of air that signaled how inconvenient my existence had become. Don't be dramatic. You have your Social Security. You have that old sedan. You'll figure it out. But you can't stay here. The stagers are coming tomorrow morning. I need this room clear. You're kicking me out. The realization hit me harder than the grief. 3 days after she died, Marcus, I have nowhere to go. I gave you everything. That $200,000 was my retirement. It was my safety net. He laughed, then a dry, brittle sound, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. That money, Barbara, pleat. That money paid for the landscaping. It paid for the pool you never use. It was gone 6 months after you moved in. You've been living here rent-free for 5 years. I'd say we're square. Square, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I raised her. I organized this household. I take Sophie to school every day. I'm her grandmother. You were a live-in nanny, he said, his voice turning icy, and now the position has been terminated. I followed him as he moved around the kitchen, wiping down invisible specks of dust. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic, terrified rhythm. This couldn't be happening. It was a nightmare. The deed, I said, grasping for legal ground. My name, surely my name is on the deed. I signed papers. You signed an occupancy agreement, Marcus said, not even looking up. Standard procedure. It states you are a guest of the owner. Rachel was the owner. I am her sole heir. Therefore, I am the owner, and I am revoking your guest privileges. The joint account, I said, my mind racing. Rachel and I had a joint account for emergencies. My social security checks go in there. There's over $20,000 in there. I need that money if I'm going to leave. Marcus stopped wiping. He turned to face me, leaning his hip against the counter. He swirled the wine in his glass, watching the red liquid coat the sides. The emergency fund, he mused. Yes, about that. Funerals are expensive. Barbara, the catering, the mahogany casket too, insisted on the plot. It adds up. The casket, I choked out. You said the insurance covered it. You said don't worry about the cost. I lied, he said simply. Insurance takes months. I needed cash. I used the joint account. It's empty, Barbara. Zero balance. Actually, I think it might be overdrawn by a few hundred. You might want to look into that. I stared at him, my mouth slightly open. He had drained me. He had waited until my daughter was in the ground, and then he had systematically stripped me of every asset I possessed. You stole it, I whispered. I used community funds for a family crisis, he corrected. Legally, as her spouse, I have power of attorney over her joint holdings. Talk to a lawyer if you want. I'm sure you can afford a retainer with euro. Wait. He checked his watch, a diamond-encrusted piece that caught the afternoon light. You have 1 hour, Barbara. I have a racquetball game at 4. I want your things in that bag and your car off the driveway by the time I get back. If you're still here, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. What about Sophie? I asked, my voice breaking. Does she know you're doing this? Marcus's face hardened. The mask of indifference slipped, revealing a flash of pure malice. Sophie is resilient. She doesn't need a confused old woman dragging her down. She needs a fresh start. You're the past, Barbara. We're moving into the future. He walked to the back door, opened it, and grabbed his keys from the hook. 1 hour. Don't take anything that isn't yours. I have an inventory. The door clicked shut. The lock tumbled into place. I was alone in the kitchen I had organized, standing over the trash bag that was meant to hold the sum total of my life. The Target parking lot was a sea of asphalt under the harsh glare of sodium vapor lights. It was 2 a.m. I had parked my car, a 2005 Honda Accord that had seen better decades, in the furthest corner of the lot, away from the store entrance, huddled between a dumpster and a donation bin. I tried to sleep sitting up. The driver's seat, which used to feel comfortable when I bought the car used, now felt like a torture device. The seatbelt buckle dug into my lower back. My legs were cramped, jammed against the pedals. I had cracked the window an inch for air, but all it let in was the smell of exhaust and damp cardboard. I had packed the bag clothes mostly, my toiletries, a framed photo of Robert I had snatched from the bedside table before Marcus could inventory it. That was it. 68 years of life condensed into 30 gallons of black plastic. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rachel's face, not the woman she became, but the girl she was. I saw her bringing me a cup of tea, her face bright with love, smiling up at me. We did it, Mom. I had failed her. I had let a wolf into the henhouse, and now he was feasting on her memory. A sharp rap on the glass made me jump. My heart stuttered in my chest. I looked out to see a flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, blinding me. Driver's license and registration now. I fumbled for the handle, rolling down the window. The cool night air rushed in. A police officer stood there, young, painfully young. He looked like he should still be in college, not wearing a badge and a gun. I was just resting. Officer, I stammered, reaching for my wallet. My hands were shaking. I hated the shaking. It made me look weak. It made me look guilty. You can't sleep here, ma'am, the officer said, shining the light into the cab, illuminating the trash bag on the passenger seat. His eyes lingered on it, then moved back to me. The suspicion in his face softened into something worse. I'm moving on, I said, handing him my license. Just needed a few hours. I got tired. He looked at the license, then at me. Mrs. Morrison, this address isn't. This over in the estates. That's a nice neighborhood. I don't live there anymore, I said, the shame burning my cheeks like acid. There was a change in circumstances. He handed the license back. Look, the store manager called. They don't want vagrants in the lot overnight. Bad for business. You have to move along. Vagrant, the word hit me like a slap. I was a professional. I was a taxpayer. I was a mother. Now I was a vagrant. I understand, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I'm leaving. There's a shelter downtown, he offered, stepping back. First Baptist, they might have a cot. I have a place. I lied. I just got tired. I turned the key. The old Accord groaned, the starter motor whining in protest before the engine caught with a rough, rattling idle. I put it in gear and drove away, feeling the officer's eyes on my taillights until I turned onto the main road. I drove until the city lights faded, pulling onto the shoulder of a dark highway, weeping silently into the steering wheel. The next morning, desperation set in. I needed to hear a friendly voice. I needed to know that I hadn't been completely erased. I pulled into a gas station, counting out $4.25 to buy a stale coffee and a packet of peanut butter crackers. I sat in the car and pulled out my phone. It was an older model, the screen spider-webbed with cracks. I dialed Sophie's number. She was 16. She had her own phone, a sleek device Rachel had bought her for her birthday. We texted everyday memes, jokes, updates about school. The phone rang once, then it clicked. The subscriber you are calling is not available. I frowned. Maybe she was in class. I waited an hour and tried again. The subscriber you are calling. I tried sending a text. Sophie, it's Grandma. I'm okay. Call me when you can. The message failed to send. A red exclamation mark appeared next to it. Not delivered. A cold knot of dread formed in my stomach. I navigated to her contact photo. It was grayed out. I tried to pull up her social media profile, the one she showed me pictures of her dance recitals on. User not found. She had blocked me. Or rather, Marcus had blocked me. He had taken my granddaughter's phone, gone into the settings, and digitally, surgically removed me from her life. He wasn't just content with taking my home and my money. He wanted to sever the bloodline. He wanted Sophie to believe I had abandoned her. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. It bounced off the trash bag and slid onto the floor mat. I screamed a raw guttural sound of pure frustration that tore at my throat. I pounded the steering wheel until my palms bruised. I was ghosted. I was deleted. I was nothing. 2 weeks later, I was a skeleton of the woman I used to be. I had rationed the crackers. I had slept in industrial parks, behind warehouses, at rest stops, always moving, always afraid of that knock on the window. I washed my face in gas station sinks, ignoring the stares of the clerks. I stopped looking in the mirror because the woman staring back terrified me. Her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. Her hair was unkempt. She looked like the homeless woman I used to walk past and try not to make eye contact with. I was down to my last $12. I spent $10 on gas. I needed to get away from the city, away from the memories. I drove west toward the coast, taking the winding roads up into the cliffs. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to see the ocean one last time. The car died on a switchback overlooking the Pacific. It didn't sputter or cough. It just quit. The electrical system shorted out. The dashboard went dark and the engine died. I coasted to a stop on a patch of gravel near the guardrail. I turned the key. Nothing. No click. No whine. Dead dot. I sat there for a long time, listening to the wind whip against the metal. This was it. The end of the line. I was stranded on a cliff with no food, no water, and a dead car. I was 68 years old. I was tired. I looked at the glove box. I kept a bottle of sleeping pills in there for my arthritis pain. It would be easy. Just take them all. Go to sleep, looking at the water. Robert was waiting. Rachel was waiting. Why fight it? I reached for the glove box. My phone buzzed. It was a startling sound in the silence of the cab. I looked down at the floorboard where I had left it days ago. The battery had been in the red for 48 hours. It should be dead. It buzzed again. I leaned over and picked it up. The screen was dim, fading fast. 1% battery. Unknown caller. I stared at it. Probably a bill collector. Probably Marcus calling to gloat. I almost threw it out the window, but something, a caregiver's instinct to always answer the call, made me swipe right. Hello. My voice was a dry croak. Mrs. Morrison. Barbara Morrison. The voice was female, crisp, professional, and urgent. Who is this? My name is Catherine Hayes. I am an attorney. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you currently located on Highway 101, near the mile marker 42 overlook? I froze. I looked out the windshield. There was no mile marker visible, but I was definitely on Highway 101. How do you know where I am? I'm tracking your phone's GPS signal, Hayes said. We have a very narrow window. Your battery is about to die, and once it does, I lose you. Do not move. Do not leave the vehicle. I can't move, I said bitterly. Car's dead. Good. Stay there. A car is 3 minutes out. Black sedan, license plate Bravo Charlie 7. Get in the car, Barbara. I asked, who are you? I'm the woman your daughter hired to save your life, Hayes said, and to destroy her husband. The phone died. The screen went black. I sat there, the phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. Rachel Shea hired a lawyer, but Marcus said everything was joint. 3 minutes later, a sleek black sedan pulled onto the gravel. A woman in a suit got out. She didn't look like a lawyer. She looked like a bodyguard, tall, imposing, professional. She opened the back door. Mrs. Morrison, she said. Ms. Hayes is waiting. I looked at my car, my home, my things. Leave them, the driver said. We'll have it towed to a secure facility. You won't need the trash bag where you're going. The car took me to a diner 20 miles inland. It was an old-school place, chrome and neon, smelling of bacon and coffee. It was anonymous. Catherine Hayes was waiting in a booth in the back. She was a sharp-looking woman in her 50s, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. She had intelligent eyes behind rimless glasses. As I slid into the booth, feeling filthy and ashamed of my smell, she didn't flinch. She slid a cup of hot coffee toward me. Drink, she said gently. You look like you've been through hell. I have, I said, wrapping my hands around the mug. The warmth was intoxicating. You said Rachel hired you. Why? Because she knew, Hayes said. She knew about her heart condition. Barbara, the doctors gave her a year. She didn't tell you because she didn't want you to worry. She didn't tell Marcus because she knew what he would do. He said she had no assets. He said the accounts were empty. The joint accounts were empty. Hayes corrected, because Rachel stopped putting money in them 2 years ago. She knew he was siphoning funds. She knew he was waiting for her to die. Hayes leaned in, her voice dropping. Rachel wasn't just a mid-level manager. Barbara, 10 years ago, she funded a startup with a college friend, silent partner. They developed a compression algorithm that every streaming service in the world uses now. They sold the patent last month. She pulled a folder from her briefcase and slid it across the table. The sale price was $24 million. Rachel's share was $12 million. I choked on the coffee. $12 million. After taxes, Hayes nodded. It's sitting in an irrevocable trust, offshore, untouchable by probate, untouchable by Marcus Coates' mind. I asked, my head spinning. Just like that. Not just like that, Hayes said grimly. Rachel was paranoid, and rightfully so. She knew that if she just left you the money, Marcus would claim you were incompetent. He'd file for conservatorship, take control of the estate, and put you in a home. He's already filed the petition. Barbara, the hearing is Friday morning. Friday? I checked the calendar on the wall. That's in 48 hours. Exactly. He's moving fast. He's claiming you're senile and a danger to yourself. The fact that you've been living in your car plays right into his narrative. So how do I stop him? You have to prove you're sane, Hayes said. And you have to prove you are the intended beneficiary. Rachel set up a protocol of failsafe. The trust only unlocks if the beneficiary can present 3 physical keys, 3 items hidden in places that only you and Rachel would know. A scavenger hunt, I asked, incredulous. She left me a game. She left you a fortress, Hayes corrected. If you find these keys, you prove your memory is intact. You prove your connection to her, and you unlock the evidence she hid inside them. Evidence that will send Marcus to prison. Hayes opened the folder. Inside was a single index card with Rachel's handwriting. Clue number 1, where we faced the storm and thought we'd never make it home. She gave this to me to hold until I made contact, Hayes said. Do you know what it means? I stared at the words. The fog of hunger and exhaustion lifted instantly. I smiled. The storm, I whispered. Lake Harrison, 1998? You know the place? I know the exact spot, I said, standing up. Let's go. Hayes had rented a new car for me, a Toyota Camry. It wasn't my old Accord, but it felt good to be behind the wheel of something solid. We drove north to the lake. The drive brought it all back. I was 44, strong, smelling of hospital antiseptic. Rachel was 14. She hated camping. She wanted to stay home and watch TV. But I dragged her out there. The storm was a legend, a summer squall that the locals said came out of nowhere. We were in a canoe when it hit Sudan. Violent, the wind whipping the water into walls. Rachel was screaming, trying to paddle. I was holding on to her, telling her to stay low, stay calm. Lightning cracked overhead. The canoe capsized. We made it to shore, soaked, terrified, clinging to each other. We had to hike 3 miles back to the parking lot in the rain, mud up to our ankles. We were hypothermic, exhausted, laughing hysterically by the time we reached the car. It was the scariest day of my life, and the best. I pulled the Camry into the old access road. It was overgrown now, but the path was still there. We walked down to the shore. The boulder, I said, pointing to a massive granite slab, shaped like a turtle's shell. We huddled under that to wait out the worst of it. I knelt by the rock. The ground was hard. I used a tire iron from the rental to pry up the edge. Underneath, buried in the dirt, was a small waterproof Pelican case. I opened it. Inside was a USB drive shaped like a compass. "The storm," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I handed it to Hayes. "That's the first key." We checked into a Holiday Inn. Hayes had a laptop ready. We plugged in the compass. Got an audio file popped up. "Play me, Mom." I clicked it. Rachel's voice filled the room. It sounded tired, strained. "Hey Mom, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. And if I'm gone, Marcus has already started the war. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I tried to protect you, but now you have to fight. This drive contains the first part of the access code, but you need the second. The second key is hidden where we built our castle but watched it fall." The file ended. "Built our castle," Hayes repeated. "Watched it fall. What does that mean?" I rubbed my temples. "Casa, we talked about a lot of things, but built." Then I remembered. "The treehouse," I said. "When she was 10, we built a treehouse in the backyard of our old rental. We spent all summer on it. She called it Castle Morrison, but 2 months later, a windstorm knocked it down. It was destroyed." "Is the tree still there?" "I think so. The rental was on Maple Street. The landlord never cut it down." Baftaco, Hayes said. We drove to the old neighborhood. It was a rundown part of town now, the houses looking tired. The rental was there, paint peeling, yard overgrown. "That's the tree," I said, pointing to an old oak in the back corner of the lot. The treehouse was long gone, but the trunk was massive, gnarled. "We're trespassing," Hayes warned. "I don't care," I said. We hopped the chain link fence. I walked to the tree, my heart pounding. I ran my hands over the bark, feeling for something, anything. There a carving. "Tem Kaduari Bumpat Castle Morrison." I pressed my fingers around the edge of the carving. Something moved. A piece of bark came loose. It was a false panel. Behind it was a small metal box, rusted but intact. I pried it open. Inside was a USB drive shaped like a tiny castle. "Key number 2, I breathed. We rolled back over the fence and sprinted to the car. Inside the cab, we slotted the castle drive into Hayes's laptop. "Audio file number 2. You found the castle. Good job, Mom. You always were the best builder." "Okay, the final key. This is the one that locks the box. The physical key to the safety deposit box in Zurich is hidden in the place where you made the promise to Robert. Not the promise to marry him. The promise you made when he was leaving us. The promise you made at the end. The promise." My heart clenched. My phone rang. It wasn't a number I knew. I answered it, thinking it was the police. "Grandma." It was Sophie. Her voice was thick with tears. "Sophie baby, where are you? Are you okay? Dad says you're sick," she sobbed. "He says you're stealing Mom's money and running away with criminals. He says you don't love us anymore." "That's a lie," I shouted, gripping the phone. "Sophie, listen to me. Your father is lying. I love you. I'm doing this for us. Give me the phone, Sophie." Marcus's voice cut in sharp as a razor. "You're persistent, Barbara. I'll give you that. You poisoned her," I snarled. "You told her I was the villain. I told her the truth. You're having a breakdown. And by the way, I know about the trust. I found the paperwork in Rachel's safe yesterday. 12 million. You think you're going to keep that. It's not yours, Marcus. Everything is mine," he hissed. And I moved the hearing up. "Emergency session tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If you're not there, I win by default. And if you are there, well, I'll have the police waiting to arrest you for breaking into my property. My security cameras are excellent." "Barbara," he hung up. "He saw us," I said, looking at Hayes. "He knows we have the castle. He doesn't have the third key," Hayes said, "and he doesn't know where it is. The promise to Robert. Where is it? Overlook Point, I said, my voice trembling. 3 days before he died, I wheeled him out to the bluff. He made me promise that I wouldn't let Rachel be alone with Marcus. He saw through him even then. He made me promise to watch over her, and he said, put a plaque here for us so we can watch the sunset forever. The bench, Hayes said. Let's move. We drove fast. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. We reached Overlook Point in Portland's West Hills. I ran toward the bluff. The bench was there, the third one from the lookout. I dropped to my knees in the dirt, ignoring the stares of tourists. I felt under the seat. Nothing. Panic flared. I felt further back, jamming my hand into the crevice where the wood met the metal leg. Click. A magnetic box. I pulled it loose. It was a small black hide-key box. I popped it open. Inside was a heavy silver, intricate key. Got it, I yelled, holding it up. Mrs. Morrison. I turned. 2 men, in dark suits, were sprinting across the grass. Toward us. They weren't police. They were private security hired Muscle Run. Hayes shouted. I scrambled up, but my bad hip caught. The lead guard slammed into me like a freight train. The air left my lungs. We hit the grass, rolling. The key box flew from my hand. Get the box, the guard yelled to his partner. I punched the man on top of me a weak, flailing blow that bounced off his shoulder. He shoved my face into the dirt. Stay down, old woman. I watched helplessly as the second guard scooped up the black box. Got it, go. The guard released me, and they both bolted toward a waiting black SUV idling on the street. They have the key, I screamed, spitting grass and blood. Hayes pulled me up. The cargo. I didn't wait for Hayes to drive. I jumped into the driver's seat of the Camry. This was my world organization. Anticipation, action. The black SUV peeled out into traffic, cutting off a bus. I slammed the Camry into gear and floored it. The tires smoked, catching traction, and we shot forward. Barbara, be careful, Hayes yelled, buckling her seatbelt. Careful didn't work, I shouted. We wove through the evening traffic on Burnside Street. The SUV was fast of oitiscology, but the driver was sloppy. He was braking too hard in the turns. I kept the Camry's RPMs high, anticipating the gaps. They turned onto the Vista Avenue ramp, heading down toward the waterfront. It was a narrow 2-lane road. I'm going to hit them, I said. What? No, I have to pit them before they get to the highway. If they hit the open road, we lose them. I floored the accelerator. The Camry's grille loomed up in the SUV's rearview mirror. I saw the guard's eyes widen. I didn't hit them square. I waited for the curve. As the SUV braked for the hairpin, I surged forward, tapping their rear quarter panel. It was a calculated touch, just enough force to break the traction. The SUV, the driver, over. The back end swung out and the heavy vehicle spun 180 degrees, slamming broadside into the concrete. Retaining wall with a sickening crunch of metal and shattering glass. Steam hissed from their radiator. The SUV was pinned against the wall. I slammed on my brakes, skidding to a halt inches from their bumper. I jumped out, grabbing the tire iron from behind the seat. I yanked the passenger door of the SUV open. The guard was dazed, blood trickling from his nose. The black box was on the floorboard. I grabbed it. The guard groaned, reaching for me. Hey! I slammed the door shut on his hand. He screamed. Tell Marcus he needs better help, I said. I walked back to the car, holding the key tight. Hayes was staring at me, pale as a ghost. Remind me never to make you angry, she said. Department 4, Multnomah County Circuit Court, 9 a.m. I walked in wearing a suit Hayes had bought me overnight. My face was bruised. My lip was split. I walked with a limp, but I walked tall. Marcus was at the plaintiff's table. He looked perfect, sad, somber. The grieving widower, Simon Keller, his shark of a lawyer, was whispering in his ear. When he saw me, his eyes narrowed. He saw the bruise on my face and smirked, thinking his goons had done their job. Sophie was in the back row, flanked by a nanny. She wouldn't look at me. All rise. Judge Vance entered. She looked tired. In the matter of the conservatorship of Barbara Morrison, she announced, Mr. Keller, proceed. Keller stood up. Your Honor, this is a tragic case. My client's mother-in-law is suffering from severe dementia triggered by the death of her daughter. She has been living in her car. She has been breaking into properties. She assaulted 2 security guards yesterday evening in a fit of confusion. We are asking for immediate emergency conservatorship to place her in a secure facility for her own safety. He laid photos on the bench. Me sleeping in the Target lot, the police report. She is a danger to herself and others, Keller concluded. She believes she is on a treasure hunt. It's delusional. Ms. Hayes, the judge asked. Hayes stood up. She didn't use notes. Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison is not delusional. She is participating in a probate protocol established by her late daughter, Rachel Morrison. A protocol? The judge raised an eyebrow. Rachel Morrison knew her husband intended to seize her estate and discard her mother, so she created a test of memory. Only the true beneficiary could find the keys to the trust. Hayes walked to the evidence table. Exhibit A, she said, placing the compass SB down, Lake Harrison site, of a shared memory. Exhibit B, she placed the Castle Drive, the treehouse found at the family's old rental home. And Exhibit C. She nodded to me. I stood up. I walked to the front. I looked at Marcus. His smirk faltered. I pulled the silver key from my pocket. I held it up. The key to safety deposit box 404 at Zurich Trust, Hayes said. Retrieved yesterday from Overlook Point. This is ridiculous, Keller sputtered. These are props. Are they? Hayes asked. Your Honor, I would like to play a file from Exhibit A. She played the audio. Rachel's voice filled the courtroom. Marcus is empty. Mom, he'll do anything to fill that void. Marcus went pale. The gallery began to murmur. The audio proves nothing, Keller argued, sweating now. It's a recording of a sick woman. Then let's look at the math, Hayes said. Mr. Keller claims his client is concerned for Mrs. Morrison's finances. Yet 3 days ago, Marcus Morrison transferred $23,000 from the joint emergency account money that came entirely from Mrs. Morrison's Social Security and his personal offshore holding. Hayes slapped a bank statement onto the judge's bench. He didn't want to protect her, Hayes thundered. He robbed her. He stole her life savings, kicked her out of her own home, and left her to die on the street so he could claim the $12 million he found out about in his wife's safe. The judge picked up the bank statement. Her eyes scanned the lines. She looked at Marcus Morrison. The judge said, her voice dangerously quiet. Did you authorize this transfer? It was for expenses, Marcus stammered, standing up. She's senile. She doesn't need money. So you admit you took it. I am the heir, Marcus shrieked, his composure shattering. It's my money. She's just a caregiver. She's nothing. The judge banged her gavel. It sounded like a thunderclap. That is enough. She glared at Marcus. The petition for conservatorship is denied with extreme prejudice. Furthermore, based on the evidence of the wire transfer and the testimony regarding the eviction, I am finding probable cause for charges of elder financial abuse and grand larceny. She pointed at the bailiff. Take Mr. Morrison into custody. What? Marcus screamed. You can't do this. Simon Keller was already packing his briefcase. I'm sorry, Marcus. You lied to me about the transfer. 2 bailiffs moved in. They grabbed Marcus's arms. He thrashed, his face twisting into a mask of pure hate. You old fool, he screamed at me as they dragged him out. You ruined everything. I hope you rot. I stood still. I didn't look away. I watched him get dragged out the side door, the handcuffs clicking shut on his wrists. The courtroom fell silent. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright noon sun. Hayes was beside me. You did it, Barbara, she said. The trust is unlocked. The money is yours. I nodded, but my eyes were scanning the crowd. I saw her. Sophie was sitting on the curb, near the parking lot, her knees pulled up to her chest, weeping. The nanny was on her phone, looking annoyed. I walked over. I sat down next to her on the concrete. My hip popped, but I didn't care. Sophie, I said softly. She looked up. Her mascara was running. Is Dad going to jail? Yes, I said. For a while. He said, you hated us. He lied, honey. He lied about a lot of things because he was scared of losing the money, but money, it makes people crazy. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out an envelope Hayes had prepared. This is from your mom, I said. It's an educational trust. She set it up separately. It pays for your college, anywhere. She took the envelope, her hands shaking. But there's a choice, I said. You can't stay here. The house is being seized. You can go into the system, or you can go to your Aunt Caroline in Seattle. She has the art studio. Remember? Sophie's eyes widened. Aunt Caroline. Dad said she was dead. Another lie, I said. I talked to her this morning. She has a room ready for you. There are painting classes that need a student. Sophie looked at the envelope. She looked at the courthouse where her father had just been led away in chains. Then she looked at me. Will you come? She asked. I'll visit, I promised. I have some work to do here first. I have to fix some things. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I put my arm around her. For the first time in weeks, I felt whole. 6 months later, the condo in downtown Portland overlooks the river. It's not a mansion. It's a clean, bright space with floor-to-ceiling windows. I set up a crafting table in the corner of the living room. I don't work double shifts anymore. My back can't take it. I make quilts. I have a collection now: memory quilts, baby quilts, art quilts. People bring me their old clothes, thinking they're trash. I turn them into something beautiful. I'm working on a queen-size quilt made from Rachel's old dresses. The fabric is soft, worn, familiar. Catherine Hayes lets herself in. She comes over every Tuesday for chess. She's not just my lawyer anymore. She's my friend. "How's the patient?" she asks, nodding at the quilt. "Coming along," I say, using a needle to set a tiny stitch. She just needed patience. "You can't force the pattern. You have to let it flow." "Sophie sent a letter," Hayes says, placing an envelope on the table. "Straight A's, and she won first place in the city art show." I smile, taking the letter. "She's a Morrison. We're tough." "Marcus pled guilty," Hayes says. 7 years minimum security." I nod. I don't feel happy about it. I just feel balanced. The scales have settled, ready for a game. Hayes asks, moving to the chessboard. "In a minute," I say. I finish setting the stitch. I hold up the quilt panel, feeling the weight of it. The colors: blend Rachel's favorite blue dress, the green blouse she wore to Sophie's recital. It's a strong, steady pattern. I walk to the window and look down at the park below, at the bench where I found the key, at the river where I scattered Robert's ashes last week. I am 68 years old. I was homeless. I was erased. But I didn't break. I turn back to Hayes and smile. "White moves first," I say. "Let's play." If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.